Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, here we are. We're already in September of 2023. And I have another special guest on the show today as I'm getting to visit with Megan Baeza. Megan, well, she's the Director of Internships and Employee Relations at UT Permian Basin. She's also the president for the Permian Basin SHRM chapter. And Megan, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Can I say go Falcons?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Hey, by the way, I don't know if I told you this when I recently saw you, but my younger brother has a degree with a certificate that says graduate of the University of Texas Permian Basin. So
We like
there
to
you
hear that.
go. I love it. Now, you were also recognized, I see, by the Young Professionals of Odessa for under 40 as well. What was that like?
Oh, that was fabulous. I mean, we got to invite our families and just being nominated with the wonderful individuals here in the Permian Basin was such an honor. But it was a beautiful evening that the young professionals put on. So to be considered Odessa under 40 was pretty special.
Yeah, that's a special group. I got the chance to. So I recently saw you at the Permian Basin SHRM conference, Energizing HR, which we're going to talk about today. But I also, just a few days later, spoke for the Young Professionals of Odessa. And man, that is a special group as well. And so when you mentioned that, I'm like, I bet that was special. Hey, well, I want to talk all about this PB SHRM. We say PB SHRM, the Permian Basin SHRM chapter, and all of the exciting things going on there. Before we do that, I would love to hear the Megan Baeza story. Like, where did you grow up? Are you from Midland, Odessa area? And how in the world did you get into HR and leadership?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am proud to be homegrown.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
love
grew
it.
up in Midland. We live here in Odessa now. I left the Permian Basin for 6 months to go to Austin to the police academy. And I think why I love Austin, I think it sealed the deal that really this is home for me and where I want to be. But my journey into HR was a little different. Kindergarten me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I really did want to be in law enforcement.
Mm.
And so, of course, that made my mother like cringe. So I started my career off in law enforcement as a patrol officer for several years here in the Permian Basin.
Okay, I did not know that. I bet you there's a lot of people that did not know that. I'm curious, like, why did you want to start off in law enforcement?
Right. Oh, well, everyone says, right, it's to drive fast and carry a gun, right? All the fun things. But really I feel like I didn't have necessarily a lot of people in law enforcement or anything like that in my family. But the people that I did know, I would say, these are just incredible people that are just giving and serving every day
Mm.
and truly wanting to help people. And, I didn't know a lot of women police officers. And so I just thought, wow, maybe I could really make a change here.
Wow. So you did you start after you graduated from college? You went into the police academy and you became a police officer, and then what? How? Tell me about the lane change after that.
So 21-year-old me, yes, a patrol officer. And it was really great. I have the most amazing stories. And, I feel like really trying to find a leadership early on. I mean, that role comes with a lot of responsibility
Hmm.
and really having to lead yourself well and care for other people. And in fact, even in a leadership role, I started off as a field training officer very early on. And so even when I went into that training, I mean, I think that I was the only female in the training, and probably most people that were in there were even a little bit more seasoned and experienced than I was. But right, I just knew that I had a passion for
Hmm.
leadership. And when I finally decided to get married and have kids, I just felt like maybe law enforcement wasn't the right fit for me.
Hmm.
The nights and weekends life, I know a lot of parents and moms do it. But I just didn't think it was the right path for us. And so I really started to look outside and say, what else can I do? And that was really tough because this was like the only thing I've ever known. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I really found myself struggling. And I heard this quote through a leadership training by Andy Stanley. And he said, it's always a mistake to decide what you want to do before you decide who you want to be.
Mm.
And man, that was so inspirational to me at that moment because I felt so lost in my identity. I really didn't know what I wanted to be right anymore. And I thought, you know what though? I can decide what I want to be as like in a person, and they prompted us to write some B goals in that training session. And so, I knew that I wanted to be a good mother. I knew that I wanted to be someone that valued other people. I wanted to be someone that gave it my all. And those are still some of my B goals today. But I found kind of myself working at a car dealership and just fell into HR. And it seemed like such a natural fit and was so great. And I'm like, you know, this is a lot like policing too. I mean, the compliance and, working with a lot of different people. So I think honestly just kind of was a natural fit.
I love that. I love all of that. There's so much here, Megan. I just want to dive deep into so much. You talked about responsibility. You talked about leading yourself, which for me, that's one of the hardest parts of leadership is leading myself every day, trying to say, "Hey, Bruce, you need to go to the gym. Hey, Bruce, you need to do this." It is tough. But I always talk about how when we find our lane, that's fluid, right? Because you found your lane early, you were in law enforcement, and then you got married and had children. Now all of a sudden, you found a different purpose and found that light. But I want to touch on this. You mentioned Andy Stanley. I love what you said because I talk about this in my latest book, and you talked about you basically framed it up a different way, and I love the way you framed it because you said before you start going and looking for your next, you need to before you decide what you want to do, you need to decide who you want to be. And it's interesting how you mentioned that because I remember when I was in early in my 40s, I decided who I wanted to be when 10 years out. I wanted to, be a good husband. I wanted to be doing well in my career and watching my kids graduate and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I put on there was I wanted to write a book. And when I got to that point in my career, 10 years later, I looked at that list and everything on there I was so proud of, everything that had been accomplished, except I hadn't written that book. And that's what motivated me to really get after that and start writing that book. But I loved how you talked about that because it really is about deciding who we want to be, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And, it's crazy how much it just shifts, right? Because I
Mhm.
think, and I work at a college and with college students who are so worried about, their career and what they're going to do after school. And, I always like to take a beat and I want them to have goals and big dreams, but more so really decide, who is it that you want to be?
Well, let me ask you this. I always like to talk about mentors on the show. I mean, you lead internship programs. I'm sure you're a great mentor for many. But while you're going through the process, especially when you're in law enforcement, you're getting ready to make that lane change. Who are some mentors that have helped you on your journey? I always like to ask who they were, but more importantly, what was it that made them a good mentor?
Well, when I was even going to college, I worked at the car dealership part time in that capacity. And I worked in the owner's office. His name is Colin Sewell, great community leader out here. And, you know, he was one that truly led by example. And I think that was so revolutionizing to me, right? Is that he had such high expectations,
Mm,
but could balance that with valuing people. And sometimes I felt like, I knew people that were good at one or the other, right? But here was this man and that he could do both. And I'm like this, getting to see that day in and day out. And then he was just, I mean, he would consider himself, I think, a lifetime learner. And, he would read books and he would do takeaway notes. And then I would have to type them up and file them. And while that seems very like probably clerical, minimal task for me to do, I was absorbing all of this wonderful knowledge, being poured into me, and just getting to be around him and having him pour into me and teach me. And I mean, there's no way I think that I would be where I am today if I didn't have that very, very early on
Mm.
in my career.
Did you realize how much of a gift that was at that time?
I
Because I
did
mean,
not.
think about it. You're typing up, like, I love reading books. I love capturing quotes, and you're sitting there and you're like learning from, sounds like a very great leader, someone who leads by example. I love that. Did you realize that?
No.
Oh
If I had to do it over again, there's so many more questions that I would ask.
man, right?
And,
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
right, there's a lot of things I would do
Yeah.
different probably in being able to have that time with him. But it really was. I mean, it was a gift.
When I got
And
to Dallas, Texas in 1995, I know I'm dating myself here. Just graduated from college and getting my start in my career. Our owner had a book by Carl Sewell and called Customers for Life.
yeah,
And I remember how great that book was and how much I learned from that. I'm sitting here like you, like that's amazing. I love that story. I love that story. So basically what I took away from that is somebody, you're watching someone, right? You're watching him lead by example, and you're like, hey, you know what? This is like, I love what all he values. And I love also, I've heard John Maxwell talk about this a lot. And I love how you talk about, you've mentioned this 2 or 3 times already, about valuing people. That's so important, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter who they are, what they do, just valuing people, because we can learn from everybody, can't we?
for sure. It's funny because Colin's mentor actually is John Maxwell. And so don't worry, we read a lot of Maxwell books. Um, I have had the pleasure of getting to meet him as well. And I mean, yeah, I think adding value is probably the most important piece. And I feel like maybe not everyone is faith-based, but for me I am, and I feel like it's almost the same, right? Is that Jesus came and love God, love others. And loving others many times meaning
Mm.
adding value to them where you can.
I was listening to a podcast one time, the Maxwell podcast, and someone was asking the question, how can I connect with this younger generation? It was probably the baby boomer or Gen X, and talking about, Gen Y, Gen Z. And he said, it's real easy. You just value people. Like, that is like, when he said that, it was an epiphany for me. Is like, it doesn't matter where you're at in your career or whoever comes along your path, you just value them and their perspective, whether you agree or disagree or whatever the
Yeah.
case may. You value them, and all of a sudden things change. Hey, I do want to talk leadership here. I always like to ask my guests on the show, when it comes to leadership, I mean, you've given a lot of things already, but if someone said, hey, Megan, what's leadership to you, how would you respond to that?
I mean, I think basically it boils down to influence.
Hmm.
But I think that's just part one because I think there can be positive and negative influence.
Right.
Don't you know it? So, right, I think it's really about influence, but your attitude that goes along with it.
Hmm.
I think I've been really blessed, not in my life with great mentors, but even just growing up. I mean, my dad, he was such a hard worker, but my mom was this person that was like over the top. I mean, just want to make everything special, and people are so unique. And so really knowing that like others matter early on, getting that from her. And then she was quite the cheerleader of like, you can do anything, and right, having a good attitude. And so, like, pulling from these best of both worlds and pairing that together, I'm like, yeah, right, that's to do it. I mean, work hard and value other people and have a good attitude. And I think that can get you a pretty good ways.
I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about adding value. And if you're doing the things that you're talking about doing, people are going to notice that and they're going to recognize that. I love that. Hey, I do want to ask you this question around your profession. like, what do you do? You're director of internships and employee relations, but what's your everyday look like? What do you focus on?
Well, you know what, Bruce? I feel like career service professionals, like, I don't know many people that set out to be that on college and university campuses, but it's the best job in the whole entire world. And I tell you, I mean, I came from HR at the dealership, I've worked in an electrical service company, and I'm like, I wish I would have found this job sooner. I don't have workers' comp claims or payroll. But really, I get to help connect students with opportunities. So
Mm,
employers that are looking for new talent and want to recruit and want to create internships as one of a recruiting strategy, we're able to help put that in place. Working with employers, right? Looking for
mhm,
new talent. That's a lot of what I get to do. But then on the
ok
student side, a lot of professional development. So for a student really to be ready for that next step, do they have a resume? Are they able to talk about their education and some of their experiences and maybe how they could add value to a new company? What do I wear to an interview? Or, how can I make my staff stand out in the marketplace by maybe even having a professional headshot or a LinkedIn profile? Or who should I be networking with? These are some of the questions that our team here gets to answer. And I'm telling you, really, it's the best job.
I love that. Oh my gosh. When you say the best job, I'm like, this lady has found her lane. Because I always talk about when you find your lane, you really have joy in everything you do. And you're sitting here and you're talking about, yes, I do work with companies and we try to, develop those partnerships, but being able to help people like that is phenomenal. I love that. I do want to ask you around there's probably some people listening early career, they may be mid-career. They're listening and they're looking for their next. I'm curious. And I want to get into some of your volunteer leadership, but you got involved with a local SHRM chapter. Do you ever advise your students, early career or people that are looking for the next to get involved? Talk a little bit about your journey. I'm curious. Why did you get involved with your local SHRM chapter?
Well, when I fell into HR, right, a lot of it was compliance and things, and I'm kind of a nerd, so I enjoyed that. But there were so many other things that I was not, familiar with. And so, I had a colleague say, "Hey, you should join SHRM." And I did, and
Mm.
I'm like, "This is great," because we were growing as a company and there were just things we didn't have. And so to have resources, to have templates, right, for even policies and procedures, and, really even just starting with a basic handbook revision, right? These were all new projects to me. And so SHRM was a great resource. And then once I kind of had a little bit of foundation, right, then it was like, how can I learn a little bit more on challenges that I was facing here in the Permian Basin? And what better people than other HR professionals right here in our home? And so that's how I got connected with SHRM. And for Permian Basin SHRM, I've been a member quite a while, but just recently, joined the board. And um, I'm so glad I did. And I don't know that I would have just raised my hand and said, like, oh, I think I'm ready to help PB Sherm. But luckily I was invited, right? And
Yeah,
so Dr. Michelle Harmon, she's been on the board for a long time, and said, hey, I think this is something you would really enjoy. And guess what? She was right.
that is fantastic. Oh my goodness. I have gotten to know some great people at PB Sherm. I mean, there's so many people to name. I mean, Andrew Clemmer, Robert Segura, Lee Tarzan. I mean, there's just so many, right? So many great people. But since then, Mel Mosier, and of course, Dr. Michelle Harmon, and your journey. The reason why I wanted to mention that was because there's probably some people listening, and a lot of times we're so busy, 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 busy. We're like, I don't have time for that. And so as we talk through this process, I wanted to talk volunteer leadership because I think that's a key part of your career development. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Now, okay, so I want to jump in this real quick before we talk about this conference that you recently had. You are the president Permian Basin SHRM, but you just mentioned earlier you recently got involved. Like, sounds like you like got involved, and next thing you know, you're the president. How did that happen? Did you just raise your hand and say, "Hey, I want to be president"? What was that journey like?
Not so much. You know, a long time ago, I just said, and this is profession, this is my kids' school stuff, sports, whatever, that I'm really not going to be one to criticize or say anything bad if I'm not willing to step up and do something about it.
Mm,
And so I have become very picky about what I get involved in because I think early on I tried to do everything, right? I'm just naturally I'm energetic and I think, oh, we can do this. I definitely have a can-do attitude, and so I'm like, oh, we'll just change the whole world. And as I've got a little further along, I'm like, no, okay, I need to focus on changing like the one thing, or really, what is it that I want to dedicate my time to? And involved in a couple different things, but Permian Basin SHRM, I'm like, no, there is so much value here.
mhm,
And the Permian Basin, I mean, being an HR professional here, I think is very difficult. Not that it's not anywhere else, but I just think in the midst of oil and gas booms and busts, there are just challenges that we face that are unlike probably a lot of other people. And so I just see this community and think, okay, we can really be here to support them. And there's so much that we can do. And plus, that I don't have to do it alone, because you just talked about
mm,
some of the amazing people that we have on our board and part of our membership. That, I mean, if I'm spending time with these people, trust me, I'm the one that's winning.
mm. Well, the thing about it is that, you get involved and you volunteer, and it takes time, right? It takes time. You're not typically doing that during your working hours. It's usually during your non-working hours. And in a lot of times it's not even during your family time at night. It's when everybody goes to bed. Okay, now I need to, do this, but it's so rewarding. So in about 28, I think it was 2018, it might have been 2019, I was called Kevin Dawson was part of the chapter, and he had called me and asked me to come speak, and I got the opportunity to come speak, and it was so great. And then 5 years later, I get a call. I think Stacy Benavides might have been part of that, but I got a call from Mel Mosier, and Mel said, "Hey, we really feel like we need to re-energize HR." I just like when she said that, I was like, "Okay, I'm in." Like whatever she asked me, I'm in, because I love it whenever we're able to re-energize people and re-energize the workforce. And so next thing you know, I'm starting to see all the great things that are happening. You recently held your conference. I think Randy Anderson, Julie Birch were there as well. I want to talk about this conference for a second. The reason why I want to talk about it is because I want people to hear the reward, that all the work and everything that's put into a conference, the rewards from that. But I'm curious, would you share, maybe, I don't know, talk a little bit about your conference and maybe a couple of takeaways that you maybe either heard from attendees or maybe heard from volunteer leaders, that you're talking to other board members saying, "Man, I'm so proud of this."
So yes, we recently held the Permian Basin HR Conference and Expo at the Bush Convention Center. We sold out registration at 120 seats, and
Okay, I
so
got to stop right now. You sold out registration. How does that feel?
I mean, I don't know how to describe it, because truthfully, not only did we sell out, but we doubled the size of our
That's
conference
great.
from last year. I mean, doubling, that seems like, do not underestimate what a small group of dedicated, committed people can do, right? Sky's
Hmm.
the limit. And so, we have everyone coming to just be re energized. And, I think starting off the day hearing from Randy talking about how important your choices are and who are you
Hmm.
surrounding yourself with. And one of my personal takeaways is like, we sometimes glamorize being average, and
Mm.
he walked around the room and he's like, so many things we say, like, hey, just take it easy, or don't work too hard. And he's like, how come we're not out there saying, like, be the best you can be today? you
Mm.
know? And I'm like, "Hey, why do I mean, I don't know that I go around saying take it easy because I don't think that's my personality. But for sure, I'm gonna put in my vocabulary to say, be the best you can today. We have this day gifted to us, so let's make the best of it.
Mm,
And I'm like, so that's how we started the day. I'm like,
mm,
that's so fantastic. And then, we had a wonderful barbecue meal because it's Texas. And I mean, then Julie, to come in after and talk about conflict because
yes.
it's just something we deal with each and every day, and some strategies that really can help us be better leaders in the workplace. And I mean, so many takeaways that I've heard from that from other people, but I will say one of my personal is she showed us this video of like run like a girl, and the little kid, it's a little boy, and he's kind of like, just mosey on. And at the end they show a little girl and they're like run like a girl, and she's giving it her all. And just being an example of like sometimes, I think in the workplace we shy away from conflict,
Mm,
but what kind of example are we setting? And there's definitely a better way to approach conflict. But when you're care about other people and when you're wanting to add value, I think it's okay to have some difficult conversations,
mm.
and to see the leader be able to do that and handle those conversations well and respectfully, I think empowers a lot of people around them to say, "Hey, maybe I have a little bit more control about my situation and how we can interact with each other than I thought."
I love that. Of course, I was there, so I got to see that video, and that was a powerful video. Julie Birch is a powerful speaker, both Randy and Julie. But Julie is also very funny. So whenever you're talking about conflict, like she is just so good at that because it can be a very tense conversation subject, but yet she made it fun, and she makes it fun to learn. And so I love all of that. There was so much buzz in the room. I mean, here you are, you're in this leadership role. You've got great people around you. I think I met your entire board. They are all moving in the same direction. They're all in basically. And then I'll tell you what, one of my takeaways is to hear the conference director, Mel Mosier, at the very end of the conference. And I could just feel her conviction. I could feel her conviction when she was talking with the attendees saying, "Hey, now that the conference is over, this is where the work begins, right? We want you to come join us. We want you to be part of this. We want your ideas. We value you." I thought that was great.
Well, I mean, anyone that has met Mel, I think you can't help but walk away a little bit more energized after having one conversation with her. And, I think what she said really hit home because we left the day with more members of PV SHRM than we started.
Mhm.
And so that's exciting to already, hear the call and take action, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times we hear the call, but, I think sometimes maybe fear or doubt or tons of other reasons hold us back.
Let me ask you this. Okay, there's people listening right now. There's probably people right now that have their journals out, they have their pens out, they're taking notes. I mean, I've got a full page of notes here. For people that are listening, they may or may not be in the Permian Basin area. They may be in another area, and they're just thinking about, hey, I'm wanting to accelerate my career. I'm wanting to be part of something bigger. I don't know, maybe share a couple of tips on or reasons why they should be part of their local chapter. Any thoughts around that?
Well, I think that the biggest takeaway that we hear is that I am not alone,
Mm,
and so knowing that there's people that are on this journey with you, and ones that have gone ahead of you,
mm,
ones that are behind you that maybe you can even mentor and help support, people on each side of you, right? That there's just this level of support. I don't know how many times a week that I get a call and they're like, "Hey, I'm dealing with this issue." I'm like, "Don't worry, let me put it in the group chat. Someone's got something for you," right? And then we're really able to, find solutions because two heads are better than one.
mm,
And then two, I think as HR professionals, sometimes we're so worried about everybody else, right? I mean, our organization, we're, you know, sacrifice sometimes I think our own well-being to just to support. the organization, to support others. And so to know that once a month that you can get out of the office and just be poured into, I
Mm,
think is needed, and that should be on your calendar.
mm. I love that. I love all of that. This has been so good. I will tell you, I talk about it all the time. You need to be part of something outside your organization just to keep growing, right? Just to connect with other people, and certainly this is one way to do that. I just loved being at your conference, re-energizing HR. I think you re-energized everyone there. There's a lot of buzz there in Midland, Texas. I loved it. By the way, I loved the George Bush Convention Center. That was so nice. Well done, bravo. And I want others to hear the message of, you know what, if you put in the work, it will pay off in some way. We may not be able to help everyone, but we can help someone. And when we do that, we just keep moving forward. I want to, I do before I shift here, I do want to ask you this because now you're married, you have children. What drives you?
So those two little girls, I think they're about everything. Have always felt a sense of responsibility, right? I think
Mm,
even starting off in law enforcement and even my work here, that I know it matters. But I think what matters most is those two little girls and what they see.
mm.
It's so wonderful because my 9-year-old, he'll ask, "What does your mom do?" And she's like, "My mom helps people get jobs." And I'm like, "You bet you I do." Right. And because ultimately, and for a lot of us, we spend more time at work than we do at home.
Mm,
And so being able to find people a job that they love, I mean, I don't think there's anything that can compare because, I mean, when you love what you do, then you can go home. And I've had a job that I've hated, and I
mm,
know what my home life looked like.
mm.
And then now, I mean, I'm in a place that I love what I do, and
Yeah.
I know what my home life looks like. And so being able to like give that to other people and help them make connections and find something that they love and are passionate about is so important. And then that my two little girls get to see me,
Mm.
living that passion and helping others. It's definitely a motivator.
You're like, I want to pinch myself. Life is just good. I love what I do. And it's not necessarily the day to day, it's just the wholeness of it, right? I just love you have your family in alignment with the work that you're doing and the person you want to be.
Yeah.
And then you're connected to all these great people at BB Sherman. I mean, I think that's the lane of fulfillment. That's what I try to encourage people. It's just got to keep on, connecting and saying yes. A lot of times, whenever you're like, I don't have time for that, say yes, and then good things happen. I love that, and I'm so excited about the road ahead for you and your chapter and all the good things happening in your area. I do want to ask you this question. You've given some great advice throughout the program, but I would like to ask if you've ever been given any advice. It was just so good. You just found yourself or find yourself sharing that with others.
Well, again, being here on the college campus, a lot of, new roles and new leaders. And early on, I got this advice and from Colin again, but he said, as a new leader, here's the three things that you can do. One, build relationships.
Mm,
Two, earn trust. And three, don't change things until you know why they're being done that way. And I'm like, really, that was some great advice. And every job I've went to, that's where I've started, is just build relationships. Who's my team, who are the people around me, who are the people that we're serving, what are the challenges, and earning trust. I mean, can I do what I say I'm going to do? And can you give me something and I'll own it, or if I don't, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that we're not where we thought we would be. And so, right, I mean, you just earn trust. And then when you maybe have a new idea and you kind of learn the ropes, I think more people are receptive because you know that they know you're for them. And then they know that you can be trusted with it. And so I really think that is a recipe for success in the workplace and probably home or whatever you're in too. I think that could apply to anywhere.
I love that. I love that. I think when I was presenting, I talked a little bit about developing influence and building trust and how
Yeah.
important that is. And I think that's what you do, right? Especially with in your role, right? You have people that, they don't know you. They just know you work for the college. They know you're there to do good things, but you still got to build that trust. Man, once you build that trust though, it's like this belief, like they have this belief. And oh man, this has been so good. I could talk to you all day. I told you the time was going to fly. I'm so excited. I'm going to put the PB SHRM information in the show notes so people will be able to learn more about what's going on there. And again, I wanted to get you on here and I wanted to highlight all the good things that you and the entire Permian Basin SHRM community is doing. It's so good. It's very energizing and super proud of you. And so thank you for coming on. Hey, I do want to end the show with some fun facts. I call it It's Time to Accelerate. And I like to ask a few fun questions. The first question is, would you rather read a book or would you rather listen to an Audible or a podcast?
Podcast.
Podcast. I love it. Any favorites?
I really do enjoy the Craig Groeschel leadership
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, that is real good. I do too. Hey, I always talk about great leaders or grateful leaders. What are you grateful for?
Probably my family. Like I said, the girls motivate me, and I could not do half the stuff I do without my husband. So shout out Abe, right? Like he gets some credit too, bud.
I love that. I love that. Hey, so we talked about, your conference theme was energizing HR. What energizes you?
Right, making connections. When
Mm,
employers come up and we're like, we thank you for connecting us with so and so student, they're the best thing ever. I'm like, oh, I know they are, right? Yeah, that's why
mm,
we got y'all connected. Or people are like, do you know, Megan, I'm celebrating my 5-year anniversary and you're the one that introduced me to this role or to this job. And I'm like, wow, you know what I
mm.
mean? That's really cool, super energizing.
I will tell you, while I was around you, I was very energized by the way you worked the room. You do like you do like to connect because you're like, hey, I'm going to go meet this person. I'm going to go talk to this person. You were thinking your exhibitors and your sponsors and just meeting people, and it was and even after the event was over, the social, you're continuing to be very energizing, and so I'm energized by that. Hey, this is my final question. Probably my favorite question I like to ask Megan is Megan, 10 years older, is around the corner. She's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to say to you?
I'm gonna say probably don't grow tired of doing good.
Mm,
Right, because life gets busy, and trust me, I feel like I like to focus on the positives, but there are so many challenges. Right?
yeah,
I mean, sometimes life is just super hard, but just don't get tired of doing good.
I love that. That's a 10 years older, wiser Megan Baeza. I am so thankful for you coming on the show today. This has been so much fun. Hey, if someone heard something that you said and they want to follow you, or hey, maybe they want to connect with you and learn more about PB SHRM, how is the best way for them to connect?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So Megan Baeza SHRM-SCP. I have my credential in there. So they can find me on LinkedIn, or if they want to email me, Baeza_ME@utbb.edu, or connect with Permian Basin SHRM online. Bruce, thank you for coming to the conference, because I feel like we were just able to end on a high note by having you as our final keynote speaker for the day. And just really challenges, right? To focus on being the best that we can be, and adding value to others. And so much what we talked about are important to me is what you were able to speak about. And we just had such great feedback from the conference. So thank you for joining us. I don't want that to go unmissed, because we were thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Listen, I was honored to be there and I have so much fun speaking and especially when we get done, the conversations afterwards and just talking about the takeaways. So no, thank you. I appreciate that. This has been so much fun. I will make sure to put your link in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Megan, reach out, connect, but be sure and let her know you heard her on Life in the Leadership Lane and you heard her say something on the podcast. It really brings that connection just much tighter. And so for that, I say thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for leading the PB SHRM chapter and serving the Texas SHRM HR community. We're certainly grateful for that. And I can't wait to see what's ahead for you. So thank you again. Appreciate you coming on.